Do you have a hard time reading books? You're not alone. In fact, a study was conducted by the National Endowment for the Arts that said only 48.5% of American adults read even one book a year for pleasure. That means over half of American adults are reading zero books for fun. So if you have trouble reading books, you're not alone. In fact, that might make you the exact kind of writer that the world needs right now. Let's talk about how you can use that to write the perfect book. Hi, I'm Cameron. I'm an author, and I use this YouTube channel to help writers like you finish their books. I also have a hard time reading books. Always have. It feels so weird to say that, like, in a public setting. Well, not public, but you know what I mean. Some people say they have trouble reading books because their phone destroyed their attention span. Or maybe they just feel like they're boring, or they just don't have the time to sit down and dedicate to actually finishing a full book. So sit and ask yourself, why do you have a hard time reading books? And really think about it, because we're going to use that in just a minute. Personally, I've always had a hard time reading books. In fact, I developed really weird reading habits that have been with me since middle school. So when I first decide to read a book, I turn all the way to the back and read the very final sentence. And sometimes it means something, sometimes it doesn't mean anything, sometimes it's really confusing or super generic. But I use that as kind of like an Easter egg, so that when I start the book and I'm going through, it's kind of like I see the finish line in the distance. And I know that if I keep going, I'll eventually get there and it'll all come make sense and be a nice bookend to this experience. So after I read that last sentence, I start reading just like a normal person from the beginning. And I read about 30 to 40 pages. If I don't like the book within that 30 to 40 pages, I quit. So at this point, you're probably thinking, okay, Cameron, I don't really care about your weird reading habits, but those reading habits are why I write the books that I write. I write every one of my books as if I was going to be the only person who ever read it. So when I write my books, I focus heavily on those first few chapters, that 30 to 40 pages where I choose whether or not I'm going to actually read a book. I make sure it's engaging, exciting, funny, and everything that I want in a story right at the beginning of the book, so that I wouldn't put it down. Similarly, when I get to the end of the book, I try to write that last sentence in a way that just perfectly ties up the whole story and is a great little bookend, because if I was to pick up the book off the shelf and try to read it, that's where I would start. I do those things because that's what I want to see in a book. Do you see where I'm going with this? You should be writing books that you like, telling stories that you think are interesting in a way that you find engaging. There are two main reasons why you should write books that you want to read. First, if you like the story and the book you're writing, you're more likely to write it. See, to become a successful writer, obviously you have to write books. You have to produce things. And if you're just doing something because somebody told you it's the right way to do it, that's going to wear out fast. You're not going to be engaged. You're not going to be dying to finish this book. If you enjoy the process of writing and enjoy the stories that you're telling, you're more likely to do it more, which means you're going to get more practice, which means you're going to get better as a writer. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, why you should write books that you personally enjoy, is because then the audience you're building around those books, they're just hoping that you continue doing the thing that you like. I write short books. That's because I like to read short books. That's all I have time for. And those readers that read my books are then obviously reading short books. So when I write a new book and it's short, that's totally fine. That's exactly what my audience expects. They expect me to write short books, which is great because that's what I love to do. I am aligned with my audience. So when I write a short book that I like, guess what? They like it too. It's a win-win. Earlier in the video, I asked you to think about why you have a hard time reading books. Now, think about books that you would be able to read. Do you need shorter books that you could sit down and read in just an hour? Guess what? There's a market for that. Do you need an insane amount of world building so that you can get invested in the story and characters? Buddy, there are a ton of people who feel that way. Do you need something that's just straightforward, beat by beat by beat, so you can put the book down and pick it up when you need to? Guess what? There's tons of people that feel that exact same way. So why don't you produce that exact book? Help that audience out. Give them something to read. that they can actually engage with. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you have these reasons why you don't read books. You should give yourself a solution to those reasons. Give yourself a book that covers all of that criteria that you're looking for. And there is guaranteed an audience that is looking for that same thing. So if nothing else, at least you'll get the practice and you'll get to write a book that you like. Then you just get to do it again and again and again and again and again and again and again.